and the lead singer walked up on stage and he was like, "You guys, I am so upset right now. Trump has been shot." And that was the first I heard of it that day, Saturday night.
Wow.
And he proceeded to talk a little bit about what this meant for our country. And then he sang another song. And I ran back up to the balcony. I was like, "Dylan, is this true?"
Rolling,
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 rolling on the river. Rolling on the river. I never thought I'd be Ike Turner. That's so wild. I am so glad to be here. Hey, guys, I am going to the beach. I feel really dandy today.
Nice.
We had rain in North Carolina. We needed it desperately.
We did.
It was a soaker, and it looks like the whole week is going to be rain. And even if it rains at the beach, I'm ready because I have Dylan Dry. I have the jam can.
The jam can.
Yeah, where you throw frisbees into it. And then I have a spike ball set. We have a guest in the audience. It's our Dylan Dry, who edits and actually who keeps us sane.
Does he, though?
Yes, he
Does
does.
he keep us sane?
No,
or does he
actually-
drive us crazy?
Hey! Da-na-na-na. That's Talking Head song. Hey!
Yeah.
I forget it. The rest of it.
I don't know.
Yeah. But anyways, I'm going to the beach. I'm going with my family. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really, really happy. But as all our audience can tell, I am not Anna Grace Smith. She is working this week after going on a family vacation to pay her bills and do her thing. I am off next week, so the next filming will be with Sarah and Anna Gray talking about a really hot topic I can't wait to see. And only they can talk about it, so there's a little juicy tidbit. But I'm very, very excited to have with us Sarah Walters, who is you're a Gen
Z.
You're a Gen Zener, and you do all our social media. Sarah's the only person I've ever met who hates social media but is determined to beat the algorithm, and that's why she goes on it.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah, so you do all that for us, but you're also she's a musician who plays how many
I
instruments?
lost count a long time ago. I actually just got a new instrument yesterday at work. I shouldn't have. I have
What
a
was it
problem.
called?
I got a ukulele because I've been playing a left-handed one and I'm right-handed.
Well,
so-
I mean, of course.
but I
you
needed
know.
a right-handed one.
I can't
obviously.
do either. Do they make a multilingual?
I think we could make one.
Okay.
We should
well,
try
we
it.
shall.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. But she plays that. She plays the mandolin.
The
she plays the
ukulele
guitar.
speaks multilingual?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
I don't know.
wow.
I can't believe you didn't know that.
No,
but
I
it's the
didn't.
only instrument with that capability.
Yeah,
Oh,
it does.
wow.
It does.
For
Well, we
sure.
just actually made that up. We have no
Okay.
idea. But I mean, that we made up. But what we're talking about today, we did not make up. We had a lot of
Okay.
facts for it.
You can't make this stuff up.
But you also play the violin. She's amazing. I can give her 8 seconds of a song and she can finish it
Okay.
without even knowing it. She knew Clearance Clearwater Revival, and
Creedence
had
Clearwater
never.
Revival.
Yeah, CCR.
One of my
Well,
favorites.
it was now, but and then we also I'm very very thrilled to have Walter Murillo on there. Did I
thank
say
you.
your name right this time? Because you're
Yeah.
like,
There's various ways to say it. You could say Murillo, Murillo,
wait, how do I say that?
Murillo.
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 Yeah. Murillo's fine.
Whenever I speak Chinese, my daughters laugh at me because I have to go wah and I do all this funny facial stuff. So Murillo.
Yeah, so Latin people, they roll their R, so Murillo.
That's a lot of teeth
Yeah,
for an
yeah,
R. Yeah.
But and what generation you come from?
Oh, I'm a Xennial, so I guess I'm in the borderline between Generation X and Millennial. So I was born in 1981, so that's
Okay,
why.
but you're also a veteran.
I'm a veteran.
Well, so tell us
yes.
about your experience. I mean, just like what you did and where you
Oh,
served.
I joined during the Iraq War era. I was stationed in Georgia, and then I went to Iraq. I was there in 2008, which was the deadliest year. But I wasn't in the front lines. I was actually in the back, in the FOB, what they call forward operating base. And in there, I would just fix the helicopter equipment and
which was really important.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what sand does to helicopters.
Yeah, it's a lot of cleaning.
Yeah, so it's very, very important.
Yeah.
Everybody plays a role.
Yeah,
and-
everybody has to play a role, and
Right.
if your role's not, if you don't do your role, then the next person can't do their
Right.
role. So
Well, and
it's a team effort,
Right.
right? Yeah.
And so what are you doing now? Tell us that, because I'm really excited about this.
Right now, we
As well as your service. So thank you for the service
Yes,
to
thank
our
you for your
country.
service.
Thank you. My wife and I moved from North Carolina to Texas.
I know. She was the bad. I was like, why? You took her there. But we're glad you're in Texas.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're glad we're in Texas.
Yeah.
We love the great state of Texas. Texas. I know we're gonna talk about this later, but Texas is one of the freedom states, and I love it.
Yeah.
Right now, we're leading a ministry called Hearts Connected.
Right.
We do what Trump wants to do, right? He basically wants to take care of his people first before we take care of others.
Yeah.
And we want to take care of Christian leaders and ministry leaders, those that are taking care of others, so they could be strong and efficient, so they could be able to multiply and take care of others.
Because there's a lot of burnout on the field.
Yeah,
missionary
exactly.
field. And okay, also, what are you studying in school?
Oh, I'm doing videography, cinema production, and basically what I want to do with that is kind of incorporate with the ministry that I'm doing, and just kind of capture the story of missionaries and ministers and pastors, and be able to bring it to the people over here so they could be aware of their current situation and what they're going through in their process.
So everybody can understand what it's like to be a pastor, a leader.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
very
exactly.
wonderful. And I hear rave reviews about all your film courses from your beautiful wife, Celia. She tells me your teachers are ecstatic to have you there as a student. I can't wait to I'm going to send you my first 15 pages of my screenplay, and you have to send me yours that you're writing. So that's a deal made in stone by me. So therefore, you must. But I'm a boomer. So we're represented by really 3 generations. You're a I don't know who's the subset, but you're the in betweener.
I'm in the
But you're
between.
definitely a difference in age. So it's really important. And
I think we're 20 years apart each.
Yeah, which is huge, you know. But we are talking about some very important things. We didn't think we could let this time. Even Sarah was so on it. I was so happy. Without speaking in the realm of politics and how they pertain to morals. I think we would be remiss to skip over the last week. So I'm going to tell you a story. It was 1968. I was 4 years old. It was my first memory. TVs were gigantic at that time. Not gigantic in screen. They were gigantic in size, and the screen was very teeny.
It was like a big wooden box.
Yes, it was a big wooden box, and it always had Zenith on it, or if you got the best brand, I think it was Zenith. And I remember just playing in our multi-room we had as a family, and my mom rushed in, and the TV was on. Because, that's how we reroute the minds of people by having the TV on 24/7. But there was a news flash, and she had it on because she was watching. She would listen to her, soap opera, which I can't remember one at a time. And all of a sudden there was a news flash, and Robert Kennedy Sr. had been shot. Oh, wow. I'm amazed that I remember that as a 4-year-old, but that was my first recorded memory. I remember standing in front of the TV and watching it, and they played it over and over again, or just even once. I can't recall that because that was a very long time ago for me. That was 58 years ago. That was 58 years ago. And I just remember my mom crying, and I'm like, Mom, what's going on? And I'm looking at the picture, and I still remember it this day, of a man on the floor, and I'm like, that's not where he's supposed to be. Wow. And I was shaken by the image, which I can still see in my head now. I'm sure it's gone under revision in my brain after 58 years. But I was shaken by the fact that something was wrong. You could tell by the man's voice that it was a devastating moment. So, I could even read at 4 years old, this is a very, very waiting moment in the history of, I didn't even know about history, but my life. And it meant something to my mom because she was standing there crying. Oh, wow. And at that time, Mr. Kennedy was Democrat. My parents were Republicans. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. It does not matter. I remember also one year, I think Mr. Obama had been threatened by somebody, and I did not vote for him. But I started praying, and I was upset that someone would touch the office of president,
Right, because it's a great injustice.
It's a great injustice, and it is to be protected. Mm-hmm. And so this happened, and I didn't even know at that time he had a brother who had, been assassinated as well, because I was born in the year 1962. Okay. So the big question I have for you all for this moment, and then it'll lead into what we're talking about. I think the question of this generation, this decade, is where were you when Donald Trump his assassination was attempted? I think that's going to be the question. Just like, where were you at 9/11? Everybody remembers that. I think this is a defining question that people will be asking, and they'll be telling generations to come. So, Walter, let's talk with you. Do you remember?
I guess we're going by generations. We're skipping down.
Well, yeah.
Just like 9/11, I was in my house. Mm-hmm. I had the news on, and I just so happened to be watching Trump's debate. And in the moment, they say there was a loud bang, and nobody knew what it was. Mm-hmm. So at the moment, I was like, "Is this really happening?" Yeah. It's like a big shock. It's a pellet gun he got shot with, because the news media wasn't giving me exactly information of what was going on, and you could see blood dripping, but I'm like, it could have been a BB gun, right? A BB gun does that. And then when you start hearing the sound, since the rifle, the weapon being used was an AR-15, it's really almost like a .22 caliber weapon.
Can you explain the AR? Everyone's up in arms about the AR-15, and it's not. It's still a rifle. It's just a simple rifle that was made lighter for the military, correct?
Exactly. Because usually you can have it on semi-auto, and it's illegal to have a civilian to have an automatic where it's rapid fire. So you have to pull the trigger manually one by one, and it's just you have a scope that you look down the line, and you just line up the iron, and with that you look through the hole, and once that hole hits the target, that's where you're shooting, and it's going to hit right on the top of it.
But it's still a rifle that was just
exactly.
And it has a different kind of magazine.
30 round magazine.
And it's made of aluminum, where some of them are made of steel and wood.
It's really a small rifle that is just made to maneuver around.
Okay.
But it was far away, so you heard a lot. It wasn't that loud. While the snipers on the roof that took them out, eventually they had a larger caliber rifle, right? But when I saw it, it was just the same reaction I had with 9/11. It was just shock. Like, is this real? Yeah. Almost like all the attendees there, right? Did you see everybody there?
Yeah.
They all were just standing still, like, what's happening? Right. And it was a moment of, gosh, what have we gotten to this nation? Have we gotten to this part in this nation? And my heart was just beginning to kind of process different emotions, and even anger came to my heart. Because there is a jealousy to that office of president, right? Because
and it doesn't matter which party.
It doesn't matter because if you're in a household and you have your parents, and you could not get along with your parents, but if somebody tries to take out my mother or my father, we're having problems.
Yeah.
That's my mother, my father. If I have problems with them, fine. I'm not talking to them, fine. But if you touch them, we have a problem.
Right.
So I don't care if I don't agree with them, but they're mine.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't care. They're mine. Yeah. So if they're mine, I love them. no matter what, and that's how Americans should view each other. So I guess that's where I'm at, because I guess we'll dive deeper into what we're doing.
So Sarah, where were you at?
Well, it was actually pretty funny. I was out dancing because there's a great
What were you dancing?
line dancing.
Dancing. You gotta
they have
take
line
me
dancing
there.
and swing dancing Saturday nights at a little barn in Julian.
Oh.
And I was out there, and they have live music every
Why
night.
did you call me?
Why didn't I call you?
I would have gone.
I figured you were probably busy.
Oh, wow.
Next time you'll get an
I wouldn't
invite,
mind
now
it.
that you
Did you
said
take
it.
Did you take the Dylan Drive?
Yeah, I did take Dylan, and it wasn't particularly his cup of tea, the line dancing part.
Can you imagine?
He did slow dance with
You know
me.
why?
Why?
Because he has to follow directions.
Whoa.
And he likes to be. He likes
to be in charge.
Yes, he does.
I wasn't going to call him out like that, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to deny the statement. So he was.
No, you're
No,
not.
you're not. You better leave it in here. We speak truth here on the Moral Tea podcast.
Right.
So I was down on the floor, and we just finished a dance, and he was up in the balcony, and the live band was playing, and they stopped their song after they got done, and the lead singer walked up on stage, and he was like, "You guys, I am so upset right now. Trump has been shot." And that was the first I heard of it that day, Saturday night.
Wow.
And he proceeded to talk a little bit about what this meant for our country, and then he sang another song, and I ran back up to the balcony. I was like, "Dylan, is this true?" Like, because I didn't know if he'd seen it somewhere and it wasn't accurate, but
We
sure
have
enough,
to fact check everything.
sure enough, you got to trust but verify. You got to fact check. But it was true, and I don't know that immediately in that moment everything hit me. I was more concerned with what the severity of the moment was. Like, I wanted to know where he was shot, how bad it was he going to pull through, and I didn't allow myself to react emotionally. My emotions came the next day when I started to hear the reports, when I started to hear the commentary, when I started to hear what other people were going to think about this moment. That's when it really started to hit for me. And I wasn't even a twinkle in my daddy's eye when 9/11 happened. So
So that was where you were. My friend Shonda had brought her daughter over to swim, and she had just left. And so Tinkerbell and I were walking near the Haymow, 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 which is to feed cows. And we were taking our normal walk where I go and talk to God. And she calls back, and I thought, oh, she must have forgotten something. I'm going to answer the phone. She goes, Renee, I just got a text that, Mr. Trump has been shot at. I'm like, what? And I'm walking across, the pond dam, and I'm going, it was unbelievable to me. I'm like, what? And so, of course, I flip on. I first think I'm going to go to YouTube, and then I'm like, no. Let's go to the People's Town Square. So I went to Twitter, and because it's pretty fast. It's pretty fast. So I go on there, and I start seeing something about a BB gun. So then I watch, and I'm talking to her. I said, I guess maybe it was a BB gun or something like that. And then I see the tape, and I'm watching it, and my first words to Shonda, that is no BB gun. No. It didn't sound like a BB gun. It wasn't a BB gun. And I'm stunned. And so she's talking about it, and then we end the conversation. And I go in the field and start walking, and I am just numb, like I was at 9/11. But I'm like, God, help, this is bad. I couldn't think of the depths of it. Mm-hmm. But later on that night, I was getting ready for bed, and I was at my sink, and of course, women have mirrors in front of there. So I was like, okay, if I was going like, where would a bullet be placed to assassinate somebody? And that is a very scary thing to think. I mean, the idea of it was cringy. Yeah. But I was trying to figure out the dynamics. And I was like, okay. And then I just went like that. And I went, oh, dear God, that was just, one little scooch the wrong way. I mean, if he had turned his head the exact opposite. So I just started thanking God. I just started thanking God because it was so incredibly close. Mm-hmm. It was also so incredibly evident to me that the Lord's hand is on each of us, whether it's our time or whether it's not. And if it's not our time, it is not our time. Right. And if it's our time, it's our time. Right. But it wasn't his time.
Absolutely.
So today what we're going to talk about, we're going to go in a little bit about what we saw on the at the convention, which was just bang up good. It was the best I've seen, because it was real people, and there were politicians, but there were a lot of really good people. But we were going to talk a little bit about that. But what we really want at the heart of this is talk about the morality of voting, why we should vote, why should we not sit back and just say this country is doomed. And I think this is really, really hard for me to take from Christians, because I think there's scriptural evidence why we do vote, and care for our country. Yeah. And so we'll want to dive into that so we can encourage other people to vote. So, Walter, what are your views on RNC? What was some highlights for you? That's the Republican National Convention, which is all over the place.
Yeah. It's pretty insane, because I think without the assassination attempt, I think the party still would have been a little bit divided, the RNC. So there wouldn't be this big rally that we see right now. So, like you said, it's God's providence, right? God's providence that former President Trump, hopefully future president, yes, I'm voting Republican. That's my view. Just we'll talk about that later. But in that he wasn't assassinated, brought them together, and they saw God's hand, because a lot of people that stand with the Republican Party have Judeo-Christian principles.
But not everybody's Christian.
Not everybody. Vivek is not Christian.
No, he's not.
But he aligns with the principles, and he even stated it himself. Just because it kind of works with throughout. It's just God-given direction for us to prosper in life, right? Because He wants us to prosper in this life and in the next life, right? But when I saw the convention happen, I saw a unity that I haven't seen in this nation for a long time. I saw a gathering of all his adversaries within the convention. Nikki Haley went in there. We saw DeSantis go there, and Nikki Haley said, "I give him my strong endorsements," quote unquote, right? So with that, it just gave me a sense of, wow, we're seeing unity, because when we saw last presidential race, even in the Democratic Party, there was still fractions. There was people divided. There was people divided in the Republican Party, right? But at the end of the day, we're seeing true unity here, and it really inspired me to go forward. Like, after that assassination attempt, my wife could tell you, I was going around the whole house very patriotic. I'm like, I'm proud to be an American. There's just something that awakens in you, especially. I don't know, that photographer that took that photo of President Trump when he had his hands up and the flag right behind him and the blood dripping through his face. It's almost like watching George Washington,
it's very iconic.
In war, right? So that's when you see that, you're like, that's my guy. Right. That's my guy. That's who I look up to. And when he did that, he's an entertainer. He knows what's going on, and he even said in his speech in the convention, because he says, I'm going to address my shooting one time and one time only. And he said, when I was down, I was looking at the people, and everybody looked scared and shocked. And that's his first thoughts coming through. And then when he stood up and he raised his hand, because he was like, I wanted to show them to go. And that's when he said, fight, fight, fight.
Let me ask you about that, because I thought about that. I pondered it. And I saw Tucker Carlson, what he said about that, which I thought was really great. But to me, what it represented to me, at that time, I'm sure he was stunned. Yeah. He didn't know how bad his wounds were. To me, it was almost like he was blessing us by not not a Christian blessing. I don't want to mess this up, but blessing us as a nation with the idea of no matter what, don't stop.
Yeah.
Keep fighting for this country. Keep fighting for the Constitution and what the founding fathers wanted. It felt to me almost like he didn't know. I mean, I imagine he didn't know what his last word, if these were going to be his last moments and last words. And Tucker did talk about the idea of anybody can be president, but what I saw was a leader.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. It was leadership.
And that's what we saw in the convention. Everybody rallied behind a leader.
Yeah.
And it's just, and everybody says it. Everybody can say they're big and bad, but once that moment of true conflict, or you get shot, or something happens, you really find out what's in a person.
Yes.
Right.
You would know.
I know. I was in Iraq.
Yeah.
And sadly to say, and I'm not going to say anybody's name, but I knew an NCO that was in charge of me, which is like a sergeant, right? And when bombs were coming, he cowered and hid in a closet, right? So, but he was a hard-nosed sergeant, but when the moment came, it really exposes what you are within, right? So moments like that really expose who you are within. And when I saw that, I saw hope.
Yeah, I did.
I saw hope in somebody able to tell world leaders, hey, it's not going to go down this way, right? So, and I think that's the same thing that the Republicans saw, which ignited the Republican convention, and were just like, all right, let's go for this. So.
But and I think, let me ask you, have you read the Republican National Convention? I mean, the GOP's platform. Have you looked at any of that?
Briefly.
Yeah. How do you feel? Because it's one thing to follow a leader. We can follow the wrong leader. What are some of the things that you are behind former president and hope to be president for me? And other people may feel differently, but that's okay. His policies. What do you think that works?
So I'd like to preface by saying I have been very politically silent all of my life for the reasons of not being in controversy. So to come in and actually speak my mind during this election is a huge step. And I actually didn't want to do this podcast. I had a moment last night where I was like, I'm going to text Renee and tell her that I don't want to do it because I don't want this to be thrown back up in my face. But the truth is, there's a lot of truth to be said during this election, more than any other that I've personally witnessed.
Is this your first year of voting?
No. I actually turned 18 the year of the 2020 election, which wasn't as controversial as this one, but still, what an election to jump in on.
This is your second year. Second time.
Second time voting. And one of the things that I really weigh very heavily in my decision to vote in general and which candidate to vote for is our economic perspective.
Yes.
So I do believe that one candidate versus another has a better economic perspective. Trump proved his abilities in office. He's a businessman. He has a track record that's been really impressive to me. And I think now more than ever, the American people need to be more stable so that we can protect ourselves from threats, foreign and domestic. We need somebody who will stabilize our economy, which is one of my biggest voting points. Social issues tend to have a way of either phasing out or sorting themselves out. So to me, the facts and figures of our economy matter most, and our population, and protecting our American borders and protecting our American people.
Well, let me tell you a quick story that happened at the House Wednesday. Lily, my cruise director of the House, had two parties planned for this week. But we were celebrating a young lady who was moving on to her career goals and moving out of the state. And so I had the table full of people who were, what are the age 14, 15 people called now? What is their Gen
Alpha?
Alpha. I
Gen
believe.
Alpha?
Maybe. They come up after me. I
Oh,
don't know
whatever
that
they
that's
are.
quite...
So all of a sudden, I mean, we were just talking about normal stuff, and there's this one young man who seriously has the comedic element down to it, and he's all of 14, 15 years old. I encouraged him highly, and he lives in New York City. and he comes from a different religious background altogether. And so I was sitting there just enjoying the conversation, and then he starts talking in about where we as the United States should buy our oil and what we're doing wrong, and why there's another country that should be hated because they're taking about the buying of the oil. And I looked at him and I looked at them, and I'm thinking, wow. I said, guys, the election really matters this year. I said, you may not like, President Trump, but his oil policies were amazing. I said, it was the first time we ever have exported oil. Mm-hmm. And so I looked at this young man. I said, take all that out, because all he could think of in his young mind as United States buying oil from foreign countries. Mm-hmm. That was it. Mm-hmm. And which foreign country it should be. And I said, take out this country that you do not like, which that people group does not, and take your people group over here and put them over here. I said, what if we went back and followed Mr. Trump's policies and pumped our own oil, and we would make you prosperous, your generation prosperous. And they're looking at me like I'm speaking a foreign language. I said, and then I had watched a Megyn Kelly interview with President Trump, and I did not know this, and I haven't fact checked this, but he said we are buying oil from Venezuela, who is far poorer than we are. Mm-hmm. And I mean, but their landscape is very, very much like us. We all know we're very energy rich. Mm-hmm. It's just all the policies in place have killed it. The thing is, you need gas, you need coal, you need nuclear to build all these EV things that they want to build. Mm-hmm. And so it's mind blowing to me that somebody who is 15 only thinks of us buying oil.
Well, I mean, if you think about it from a young person's perspective, that's all they've ever seen. So me personally, I didn't get into actually researching our government policies or anything till a few years ago, till I really started seeing things change in my lifetime. When I saw gas prices start to shoot up, I was like, why? Right. How does that make sense? How is gas getting more expensive?
Because there's a country called Texas.
That's right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, younger people don't take the time to actually educate themselves, and I think that's why most of my generation has a difficulty even thinking about voting. They're like, I don't even know who to vote for, and then they go to social media, everybody's favorite and my hated platform,
TikTok.
They get all their information from there, and nobody fact checks anymore. My sister even said something in a group chat the other day I couldn't believe. It was an unsubstantiated argument that she had seen, likely from one of these sources that just expresses their opinion, but they don't take the time to actually learn.
Well, if you want to learn about energy, my favorite Substack is Doomberg. They talk about energy all the time. I have loved to read about energy since I was young, like I was 13. But it's really good. You can skim over it, but it talks about all sorts of energy, and they throw in other things as well. But it's great. Okay, so we have all this in mind. What about you and the platforms? I do know this. I was very, very upset about the debate that they left out Robert Kennedy Jr. I thought he deserved to be there. I mean, he's a viable candidate. There's many things I like that he says. Mm-hmm. He loses me totally and completely on abortion. But you tell me about what you think America is facing. What are the chief problems, and what if who has the answer?
Well, I don't think anybody has the answer, right?
Yeah.
Only God has the answer.
Yes, there we go.
At the end of the day, Trump is going to make mistakes.
Yeah,
right. We all make mistakes, right? But the thing is, who's going to make us more prosperous? Like Sarah was saying, right? Because at the end of the day, in the Bible it says, count your costs before you go to war, right? So you got to know what you have, you got to take care of your people. And once your people are taken care of, you could take care of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right? I know we're the direction that this world is going in is where everybody's an equal playing field,
Mm-hmm.
and we do that, but you can't do that at the end of the day, because I think you need somebody to show you the model, how to do it, and you build your own nation that way. Right? You can't be milking off of somebody else, another nation. It's just like I tell my daughter, right? I said, for her to understand basically basic politics. And I told her, you know what socialism is, Caroline? I told her, socialism is you go to school, you work hard for an A, but there's a student that is an F student. But they said, no, we need to be fair and give part of your A to that student. So you're working hard for that A. You'll get a C. He'll get a C. And you'll be upset because you put all the work and effort to get that A, to get that C, and he didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And
So you're not getting rewarded for your work. Right? That's why people in Cuba are leaving.
Yeah.
There's doctors in there. They're super smart,
Yeah.
super intelligent. But they did that same system to them. And they can't prosper with the education they have. Right? There's some places where capitalism can improve, but it's the only system that has proven to improve people's lives.
Right.
Because socialism is a good idea, right? And biblically, you'll see it, right? You'll see when I know this is not a Christian, like in-depth Christian platform, but in the Book of Acts, you saw everybody sharing with each other. But at the end of the day, you saw everybody working.
Yes.
Yes.
You saw everybody collaborating.
Right.
And you saw everybody moving, all right, my family member needs help here. Right? So I think the platforms that we're speaking of, I see the Republican platform as one that has the right idea where to progress us forward. I see the Democratic platform a little bit trying to take us into the energy system, the greenhouse where it's going, but it's not working.
No, it isn't.
Look at California.
I know. Yeah,
California,
look at California.
is losing Silicon Valley. California has lost SpaceX, X. They're losing big businesses. San Francisco is a city you do not want to step into right now.
I don't want to go there.
So if you're looking at examples of what's being, look at New York. New York is not what it used to be.
Yeah.
New York, 10 years ago, you could walk. It was the safest, biggest city in the whole world. So if you start looking at all the examples of what the Democratic platform has given us, it hasn't really given us anything that we can hold substance to, right?
It doesn't play out well.
It doesn't.
And in reality, you have people on the streets. And that was at the RNC.
Yeah.
I love the Dallas mayor.
What he said.
He was on there, and he was talking about how he's one of the safest cities. Dallas is one of the safest cities in this country. And I just recently went to New Orleans. Hello, Tinkerbell.
Hey, Tank.
Oh, my sand toys are here. Sorry. But I went to New Orleans recently, and it was it was bad in 2008, 2009 when I last went, but it was horrible. And I was with people from a different country, and they're going, why do you all allow this? Why is this being allowed? And I'm like, well, it really matters. And I basically said, voting for the right candidate really matters.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
So let's talk a little bit about voting.
Yeah, I would say that somebody told me if you don't vote, you don't have a right to complain.
Ooh.
So I would say that is very true. It's like if you don't work on dinner, you don't have a right to complain if it's not what you want to eat.
You don't work, you don't eat.
You don't work, you don't eat. And I grew up on a farm, and hard labor is very much instilled in me. And it's not hard labor to go to the polls.
Yeah.
It's not.
No.
In fact, you could take a day off work to go vote.
Yeah.
And it's actually a good thing. It could be beneficial. It's a legitimate excuse. It's one that our country needs because we are one of the few countries that remain on the principle that the people have the power.
Right.
we need to remember that the government is not a position of power over the people. It is a position of power for the people.
Amen.
And
Speak it. Well, that's not an amen because
well,
it's not
it's more moral
Yeah.
to do that because you're giving the power to the greater majority, which
Right.
is the people.
Right.
So from a moral standpoint, it makes more sense for us to be the ones casting the votes.
Well, it was also how we were created as a country.
Exactly.
It's at the very.
Yep,
It's the first 3 words.
exactly.
Yeah.
We the people.
Yeah.
And we need to remember that because that alone should be enough reason for you to go to the polls. And if you don't know who to vote for, the internet exists so beautifully now that all you have to do is spend 5 minutes on there. Instead of watching like 30 YouTube shorts, you can just go and go read one article. And it'll give you enough information to go vote. Just
Well, I do encourage everybody to go to the platforms. You know, what does the GOP say? What does the Democrat? What does the Independent Party say? I think that's really, those are the established desires of that group of people.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that we.
Yeah, and open
look
yourself
at
up
this.
to all viewpoints just so you can gather all the information. You can't make an informed decision if you don't consider all, points of view.
Right. But we have had, it's a tale of two cities. We remember what it was like under former President Trump. His policies worked.
Yeah,
We were exporting oil. The inflation was at 2.3. We seemed to be, we were definitely safer. Our cities were not breaking out in riots. And then Mr. Biden took office, and he signed away most of President Trump's policies. And it seems weird because the world seemed, and it had for 4 years, how many years has it been? It's been forever. It feels like, but everything was topsy-turvy. Right was wrong, wrong was right. And it seemed very, very odd. And I kept thinking, it just feels like evil's winning, Lord. It feels like evil is winning. I think there's a different, I think that was what I took out of the convention is, like you said, hope. I don't want to say, only, God is only with Republicans or anything. God is with us. God is with us. We just have to invite him in. But he's here anyways.
It's not just Democrats, because you have your moderate Democrats that generally they would be considered today Republicans.
Yes, they would. Absolutely.
Right? But they have the moral compass.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they do want to help other people in the city. So that's the good thing about Democrats.
Right.
I grew up in New York City. I was, I believe, a Democrat for a moment, but then they just swung to left.
Right.
Many of them did. And I will say the response to the attempted assassination on Trump really revealed to me the division within the Democratic Party. To me, it did not reveal a much of a division in the Republican Party, but you had Democrats who were saying the moral thing is trying to assassinate a presidential candidate is wrong. And then you had Democrats who were arguing that we should have killed our presidential candidate.
Who is this?
So there is a very famous Democratic speaker named Destiny online. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I saw that trending on
Yeah,
Twitter.
and then there are several smaller spoken Democrats who said, "Don't miss next time." And
that was all.
It was
that
a staffer
was-
of the congressman.
Oh, I
So-
see.
Yeah.
Well, it was all over
He got
Twitter.
That staffer got fired.
Yeah,
But-
that was the most hateful thing I've seen.
Yeah,
I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
It would not have been a good thing if the candidate had been assassinated. I would have said the same thing had Biden been in the crosshairs.
Yeah.
It is not a good thing morally to assassinate somebody who is running in opposition to you.
Right.
If we set that precedent in America,
That's called dictatorship.
It is, and we're not allowing free speech.
Yeah.
We're not allowing tolerance, which are things that the Democratic Party are proponents of. So for some of their major speakers to say that this was a good thing, we should assassinate this candidate, to me, that creates a moral ground that I can't stand on, no matter who's running in office. And I would vote for a good Democratic candidate if there was one, if there was one that could put a sentence together for me as a citizen, I would vote for that candidate. But to me, there's only one competent candidate that has a chance of winning.
What about you, Walter?
In the same manner, it's I hold it to that place where if I'm going out to vote, I need to weigh in on what they're saying, and I need to analyze what they're saying. So I need to do my research. I need to find out what they're saying, and not just because I'm driven by their emotional speech or I'm driven by anger, or, because on these decisions we need to do it logically, right? We can't just go off of, I hate that side, I hate this. You need to hear them out, right?
But I want to ask you, what about the fourth branch of the United States government, the media? Who should people turn to really to find out the truth?
Today, now, you have to find it yourself.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. It has to be all of them or none of them. Because you can't pick one.
Even though the media is supposed to be unbiased, they are biased.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Even when you write a book, you try to be unbiased. But the thing is, you have to you first have to figure out who your audience is and how you're speaking, and then you have to structure how you speak, and then deliver what you're speaking, right? So they know who their audience are, and they have to cater to the audience to keep their ratings, right? As you see, CNN right now is dying.
Yeah,
they're dying. They lost 96 or 97% of their viewership after the debate.
Yep.
So.
And now they're just struggling to catch up.
They're struggling, and although and it's just because they changed the narrative, right? There's no truth. So you have to search it. You have to go to YouTube, go to different news stations. I look at CNN. I look at MSNBC. I look at Fox News. I look at Sky News. I look at BBC
I love
News.
Sky News.
Right? They're like Fox News of Australia.
Well, but it's so wild because they have such a flair for delivering the news. There's a bit of a sarcastic tone to them, and I love them. I love it. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. So and it's just searching the matter out. And like Sarah was saying, we have that privilege right now, where Al Gore brought the internet to us, and we have to take advantage of it, right? Yeah. Just like you and I were talking about AI, right? I don't like AI for writing, but AI is going to assist you in different areas that could cut it out. We have to adapt to the times, right? And in that, I believe that's how we'll decipher. And we'll filter through the nonsense, because you hear one side. Because I hear the Republican Party sometimes, and sometimes they're just bashing too much, right?
Sometimes.
So and that's why I'm just like, all right, let me hear them, and it's just like hearing an argument between a couple, and you step back, and then you're like, no, you're wrong in this part, you're wrong in this part, and look, let's be clear, Donald Trump wasn't the most gentle man.
No, he wasn't.
Right? He was kind of vulgar at
you
times.
explained him really well, because I was asking you about that, and his tweets never bother me. I just figured that's how people play. I mean, I just looked at it and I went, okay. Because I've been on Twitter long enough, there's enough mean tweets. He's not the only mean person.
No.
But you said, Renee, you have to remember, he's a New Yorker. That's how we do in New York. We're New Yorkers,
It's just, it's innate in our nature to be a little bit rude, but it's no lie.
Right.
Bless your heart.
But the rudeness doesn't come with meanness, right?
Right.
It comes with a genuineness. It comes with the hustle and bustle of the city. I got to get a point A to point B. I got to make sure this happens. But if you hear Donald Trump's story, how he is with people, people end up loving him because, Dana White said, that he texted him and he told him,
I love that.
I'm sorry for ruining your
I watched
vacation.
that last night.
Like, you're the president inviting somebody over to come, and, it's, to me, it shows genuineness.
Yes.
But sometimes when you have a hard exterior, people don't see your inner, right? So that's why you have to look past all those things, right? And out of the foolish things, God confounds the wise, right? And sometimes we have to see the gold in people. Right. And we try to look at it, I tried to search it for Joe Biden. I tried to look at, there was a moment when they were mocking Joe Biden after the debate, and Fox News was just going horribly hard on him.
I did not.
And I told my wife, I was like, Celia, this hurts my heart.
It did.
It hurts my heart. How are we going to mock our president? Right? Yeah, he's in that place, but we can't be mocking him.
No, after the first, it was, I think, question number 2, and he stumbled so badly. There was no, oh, yay, about that. I was genuinely concerned about his well-being. Yeah. I had prayed, obviously as a Christian, for his salvation and for the Lord to be able to give him a sound mind, because it was so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It was so very heartbreaking. And I couldn't even watch. It was hard for me to watch the rest of it.
Yeah.
Because it was so disturbing. So I do think there is a compassion that we need to remember. That's part of what we as Christians have to show.
Yeah.
Well, and I would say as somebody who's looking at my president currently, Joe Biden, I think it is incredibly immoral to ask him to run another term.
Right.
Because if we see the decline over the past 4 years as relevant, which a lot of even Democrats are acknowledging that he's not as competent as he used to be in office, I would say it's incredibly immoral to cast your vote for somebody who deserves a good rest of his life and not a contentious political one.
Right. Yeah, because it is very, very, is he up for the job? It's clear, But I did watch, I did listen on the way to pick you up from the airport, you and your bride, Megyn Kelly, who had a rough start with Donald Trump, but had actually interviewed him and gave a great interview. It was wonderful. So I've gotten back into listening to her. She's a very sharp, quick woman.
Oh, she is. She's always been.
I really admire her. But she had, from the convention, Byron Donalds he's a representative of Florida, I believe. And he was talking about the whole campaign funds, because the campaign funds are under Biden-Harris.
Oh, yeah.
That he has to receive them, and only
the ticket, yeah.
Only one of them on the ticket I think he can bequeath them. I'm not sure but I think it was to Harris. Yeah. But other than that, they can't be used for anybody else. So that puts, that's amazing, because they've raised a lot of money. So I understand when you say that, but there's great hesitation. So they did speculate that President Biden would accept the nomination and then pass the funds on. But he doesn't get to just indiscriminately pass it to whoever. I think he has to pass it to Vice President Harris. I do believe that is what the rules are of campaign finance. But
I'm not
that's what they were saying on the show.
I heard the same thing, where it only pertains to Biden and Harris. Right. But the thing is, they don't even want to transfer it to Harris.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're having issues with, no, we want to put somebody else. And how, there's so much, there's so much confusion in that platform that it makes me hesitant to vote for them. If I was a Democrat voting for those policies.
I definitely think I would move over to Robert. Most definitely.
Well, the problem with doing that and voting for the independent candidate is historically they've not had the majority of votes, so it's almost like casting your vote into a whirlwind.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense to vote for the independent candidate, especially during such a contentious time for our country. Yeah. We are split into two parties right now, and I've not heard Kennedy really at all campaigning, because he's not who's online. He's not who's on the major platforms. He's not who's debating. So right now, I'd say there are only two options to really vote for if you want to have a chance of your candidate making it into office.
I thought it was interesting.
You know who I really like, Renee? I'm sorry to interrupt. I forgot her last name, but it's Tulsi
Gabbard.
I like her.
Yeah, she's good.
I like her.
Yeah,
I like her, and she, to me, she almost leans Democrat a little bit.
But didn't she switch over?
Yeah, she's a libertarian right which is under Robert's party. And I think she has the most sense out of all of them, in the sense of communicating with people. I think Trump is a great businessman and a person that will get our country running great. But the way that she communicates, I truly do like about her. Yeah. Sorry, I just need to add that.
No, that was really good. So what do we want to talk about on because we don't want to merge. I mean, we are a nation under God.
That's right.
You know, as it was formed in the Constitution.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So that's a big deal, liberty and justice for all. So as
Donald Jr. said that, I think.
Well,
in his speech.
Well, Walter and I were talking about diversity, and there was this great skit from, what was that comedian? He was talking about one of the airlines came out and said they were going to do diversity on a pilot. You know, they wanted more pilot diversity. And he's like, yeah, we don't want these planes to be landed by white people if they have a really great record and being on time and all that. We were talking about how diversity does not matter
it doesn't.
with airline pilots, surgeons, and leaders. You know, we really want competent people and people, you know, in general. We want.
I would say look at the content of the character, not the color of their skin.
Yes, and someone else had said that a long time ago, very historically.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no, it's really, really good. So we obviously come with it at a Christian framework, but I think we just come out of it with a sense of the Constitution, and what we have in place. The Declaration of Independence, but we also, how do we want to look at what is the morality behind voting or not voting?
Well, I would say exercise the right that people have literally died to give you. We remain a free country because of the service of our military, because of the policies we have in place, because of our founding fathers and the power that they put in the people's hands. And if you don't exercise it, it's almost like never using a gift somebody gives you. You don't value it. So it doesn't serve you if you don't exercise it.
Yeah, that's really good.
You know, we've lost the sense of being American and having pride. Like when you go to another nation, they're flying their flags all over the place. When there's an election, it's almost like 100% of the population or 90% of the population that goes to vote. And they want to see their nation turned around. They're desperate for their nation to turn around. And when they come into our country, they fly their flag, they still speak their language, and they hold pride in who they are, right? And then they attach their nation to, when they become Americans, they attach their nation to our nation. So they'll call themselves Mexican American. They'll call themselves Colombian American or whatever American. And I think us as a nation, we need to begin to instill that pride of who we are in a nation. And part of that pride is going to vote and saying, I voted for my president. I took part of the process to put whomever I thought was right in office. And when it doesn't go your way, you have to be okay with it.
Right, you do.
And you have to say, this is part of our process. Right? And the people have chosen.
And God even says in his word that he institutes who's going to be in positions of power. And we honor him. Above
all. Above all. And so even if the wicked rule, it was God who put him in there. Right? But it's also for a wake-up call for us.
Yes.
Right? Because I think
we
get too comfortable
get into
sometimes.
the Old Testament.
We get too comfortable sometimes. And I think we have gotten complacent as a nation, and we have slept and slumbered this whole time. And it's time to wake up and rise.
It's time to fight.
It is time. But explain that word fight, because people hear that and they think we mean violence, and that's not what we're meaning.
Violent. People often have issues with defining words correctly in certain contexts. Fight in this context means to fight for our country, to remain what it is, a free nation under God. And to me, that's what I think fight means. Fight means retain hope. Fight means use your rights. Fight means be America, be American, have pride in that.
Right, and I think we have dogged our country. Our country has been dogged for
By
so
its
long.
own citizens.
Yes, its own citizens, and we have flown other people's flags on campuses. And I'm sorry, it is wrong, and people have not stood up against that. It's wrong.
Yeah.
We, first and foremost, we're Americans, and then the Lord is gracious to let us. Megan Kelly said this. She goes, we have been given the lottery win of a lifetime, and it is true, because I look around. I'm always looking for a second passport somewhere. I'm really like, where would I have a second passport if I wanted one? And truly, there's no place like America. No. Even in its worst times. And I think I heard someone say, and I agree, I hope this is has been our bottom, so that we can rise up and be good. Because when America is operating the way America was designed to operate, it is good for the country. Yeah. It is good for the world. And it doesn't mean giving handouts. No. It doesn't mean giving handouts to its people. But people, it goes back to even, we need to get back to where there's so many men out there who've been dogged by so many groups, learned, the idea of receiving handouts, where work, doing a good day's labor, no one, unless you've done it, it is good for your soul.
It is.
It is so good. And the Lord designated work even before the fall in the garden. And so, he said it was good. So, we need to get back to work. And I'm not saying, bad work. I'm saying work that is, productive and good.
The work you're destined to do.
Yes.
Work
being who we were created to be.
Right.
For a community rather than for self.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm very capitalistic. I don't believe, I do believe in the biblical things, share things. But when we do this, we learned this with Ananias and Sapphira, is that we are able to share what we will.
Yeah.
We don't
what
have.
comes out of your heart.
It's not. It comes out of your heart. It doesn't mean you have to manually share as in the socialist, communist, a kind of flair. So a return back to the goodness of what made America great. We saw it in action. What are some more things? Why are some more reasons for voting?
I want to tap on what you were just saying right there. Many years prior, I think America probably still is, but it has declined. America has been the most generous nation in giving in charity. Now, I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about the people.
Yes.
But charity has declined now.
It has.
Drastically.
Yeah.
So when we have and we give out the goodness of our hearts, we give abundantly.
Right.
Yes.
But only if we're taking care. So the more the government begins to take away from us, we're less likely to give and more to hoard.
Right.
You wonder if that's calculated.
But then the world doesn't receive.
No,
the
they
rest.
don't. They don't.
Because the governments alone cannot support the world.
No.
Right? Missions, let's say, I'm part of mission organizations, and they get funded by the church. They get funded by those fundraising and giving. It's not just the Jeff Bezos organizations or Bill Gates organization.
It's by every single member of your congregation in your local church.
Exactly. And if that happens, when the economy is good, people give.
Yes. Yes.
That goes back to what I was saying.
Exactly what Sarah was saying.
It's proven.
So if we're not good in that area, we won't be able to give.
Yes.
And we won't be able to enjoy the abundance, and the world won't be able to enjoy what America has to give to us.
Well, and right now, this is what corporations across our country, they're holding cash. Everybody's holding cash. We're all holding our breath. John
Deere just left us to Mexico.
Yeah. So the deal is that I think there's a stewardship issue in voting. The Lord has given us dominion over this earth, has given us the the concept of stewardship.
Yes.
And I think voting is a stewardship issue.
Oh, it is.
I agree.
And something that is required of us. I think it's interesting in this
It
election.
should be a mandate. It should be a mandate.
Well, then,
it should be like jury duty, right?
No, I don't think it should be. Because,
You don't think so?
No, because it takes away freedom.
That's true.
Yeah, you can't do that.
So I shouldn't do jury duty?
No, you should. No. Jury duty's different because
Jury
that
duty's
is.
different.
I think that's a part of it.
I'm
the
joking,
process.
I'm joking.
I've done my share of jury duty, and it's always had an inconvenient time. Have you ever noticed? I mean, really. And then you want to write, and then
I think there needs to be less legislation and more encouragement of morality.
Yes.
Because if you exercise your rights,
Yeah.
your rights given to you as a human being, then morally you're doing the right thing. No
Right.
matter who you vote for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you believe in your heart and aligned with your morals that this is where you should cast your vote, then exercising that right is the absolute correct thing to do.
Right. And you don't have reason. If you live in a state that has voted for abortion after the baby is born, you have not exercised. If you haven't voted, you don't have the right to complain.
You don't have the right to complain.
But that's how it was set up, is like you're able to move out of that state because you disagree.
It's insane how they put it in a package, though, right?
I know.
They
Yeah.
give you all the things you want, and then they give you something that is
Well,
morally against.
It is
Against
such
you.
a gimmick because
Yeah.
the pork thing in it is just, it's not fair.
No.
Like I remember someone saying a bill should be 2 to 3 pages max, and we know the famous Pelosi line, well, you have to vote for it so you can read it, kind of thing.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
said that she was the
Yeah,
first
I
one who
remember
said that on that first big stack of bill. There was nobody who could read through that.
Within the time frame that
With
they
the,
gave. Yeah.
it was ridiculous. So give some more reasons for voting, y'all think.
because if we don't,
Particularly
then
your generation. Do you think your generation is going to come out?
I think my generation is going to do what's easiest because they're soft. Because we have easy times, and because my generation largely isn't paying their way. I know I am.
Are they still getting COVID payments? Is that what you're saying?
There are people still being supported by their parents, their grandparents, COVID payments. There are people who don't make enough income, so they're supported by welfare. I just see my generation as very soft, and they don't need to vote because no matter what happens, they believe they'll be taken care of. And the truth is, you can't ride on the coattails of the ones who came before you. And if you ever want to get in a position where you can be a leader or you can be an influencer or you can be the next greatest generation, then you have to start exercising the rights that are going to be required of you when you become older. So that is why it's important now more than ever, when the stakes are lower for you, to get out and to start exercising not only your right to vote, but your right to get a job, your right to get a house, your right to do all these things as a red-blooded American.
Well, I know everybody is struggling. I mean, I have income, and I look at Instacart, and I look over to your wonderful wife, and I go, this is what that bought. It's diminished. It's diminished 40% at least what you can do on Instacart. And I'm blown away. And I'm thinking of the average American who lives paycheck to paycheck.
Struggle.
They're struggling. They're struggling to keep up.
It's not even paycheck. Paycheck is those that are even making $80,000, $90,000 a year. I think you have to have like an average income of almost 112 to kind of even afford a house.
That's exactly
that
what
is.
it is.
I can say-
If you can find one, that's
Ridiculous.
It is. And looking at it as a 21-year-old female trying to pay her own way right now, I am absolutely petrified because I don't think I'll ever be able to own a house.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever be able to afford the groceries that I should have. There are a lot of nights that I go home and look at my fridge and there's nothing because I haven't been able to afford that and gas and rent and electricity and Wi-Fi and everything else that we have to survive in our society. So it's just like, if we don't do something about it, we won't have a next generation taking over the spots that the old ones will leave.
I do think on the coattails of this, we must talk about the national debt. And it does go into the bills that goes,
Yeah.
I mean, this madness has got to stop. Because I was talking to that group of young people I had around the table. I said, listen, I asked them all what they were, and that's, I guess, when they said they were alpha or whatever. And I quickly forgot that because I'm like, okay. But I said, I'm a boomer. I said, you have me to thank. You have my generation to thank for doing that, because the majority of the older Republicans, older Democrats, have porked up these bills, have given money to nonprofits that should be supported from people, not the government. Like, I that's great that, they're museums and all that, but, there's a reason people have those little bricks with their names on it. That's called raising funds. But we have clouded. It's not even. It's phenomenal to even think of that much money. And if we don't tackle this issue, I do think it's one of the things that make us the weakest country.
Make us very vulnerable.
Why did we become a nation,
vulnerable.
Renee? Why did we become a nation?
Yeah.
Because we were being taxed.
That's a good point. Yeah. Everybody want to forget the
But
Boston
now we're
Tea
getting
Party.
taxed when we get paid. We get taxed when we buy something. We get taxed when we sell the thing that we bought. So we're getting taxed different ways.
Yeah.
And it's like a big Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
We're getting nothing at the end.
Yeah. And they also think that's the way to solve our problems. And the problem is they're not directing the money to any of the national debt.
No.
It's just growing. It's just like
It's spend.
It is. It's like writing all these checks that are bouncing, and they
It's like
don't
a teenager
care.
with a credit card.
It is, and
It
it's
is.
like overmaxed, and they don't
Yeah.
care.
No. And the problem is they don't have a parent who's going to come clean it up. We as a nation are the parent, and we need to stop spending. We need to bring stuff home.
Yeah.
We need to focus on that,
we
because
need
if we
to
don't
drill. We need to drill,
Drill,
baby.
baby, drill.
Drill, baby,
Yeah.
drill.
If we don't start now, we won't get anywhere.
No. But I do think if we do all these things and we don't cut spending and we don't look at this national debt, and there's been plenty of people talking about fair tax, flat tax. They've been talking about, a penny tax to go to the debt, and we could have it. Well, that was used to be. In 10 years, we could have a hunk out of it. How to do that now is the only way I could think of is to become energy independent, to become the capitalistic country that are, we're very independent that way. COVID wiped out all our wonderful small businesses. The beauty about a small business is you never know when it's going to turn into a mid-sized business or even, and it wiped out all these things. So our economy, but we still have things that we have to address in the nation. That's something I hope that they all consider. Yeah. I think we're smarter. I hope we're smarter now. I don't know. Here's the role, too. I want to put a shout out to all the state and local elections that are coming up. These are very, very, very important. I did not know until a friend of mine told me how important the sheriff was. I did not know to the COVID how important the sheriff was.
Right.
Like he could stop a mandate really quickly. I know what governors do. I love North Carolina's Mark Robinson. He's straight up. And some people say he's too much, and I'm like, okay, I welcome that. Because he's straight up moral.
You need it sometimes in the hard times when you need a change. You need that strict father. You need that strict leader that's going to say, hey, I know you're not going to like it, but it's going to help us out.
Yeah.
Just like you said, we're in a big debt, but you need to hunker down. We need to cut spending. We need to do this so we can get into a place where we're able to go to the vacations that we want to go to, right?
Or give to those who need it.
Exactly.
Or help other countries when they're in need. But if we don't stabilize first, it's like putting on your mask before you can put on somebody else's on an airplane. It's critical.
That's true.
The difference between this, I'm just reliving the 70s and the now. They're very, very, very similar. Even the furniture, everything's redone. But the 70s, we were a creditor nation. We were loaning money out.
Right.
Now we're a debtor nation. I mean, the United States of America is a debtor nation.
Yeah.
Up to its earballs. Earballs? Eyeballs? I guess I have ear on the brain with what
Maybe the hairline.
Yeah, it's really, really, really. So I really do want us to focus, while we're focusing on the presidential, we also need to focus on our state and local.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you all plan to early vote?
Yeah.
Yeah, in this season, I think I am.
am
I
too.
will.
Okay. And, you know, they laid out that plan in the Republican convention. They
Right,
were like,
they
we
did.
didn't do it last time. We need to do it this
Yeah.
time. We're going to change all that, but we need to work with what the system
Right.
that we have right now.
Right.
Because you don't want a surprise.
Yeah.
No.
No.
You know, and you don't want to get comfortable. What if you can't vote on November
Yeah.
5th because you have to work that day?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
because your baby is, you know, this is the same thing that the
Anything could
Democrat Party
happen.
told their voters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you can because you have a kid and all that. Hey, same goes for
Mm-hmm.
you, Republicans. Right? Same goes for you, Libertarians.
Right.
Go out, vote,
Yeah.
and you have many options to vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually easier. You know how you said
Oh,
we're
yeah.
complacent, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or, you know, but I kind of wanted to touch on Gen Z.
What?
Or Gen Alpha. I'm seeing that they are now having a fighting spirit. Like the woke
yeah.
culture is
Yeah.
dying.
Yes.
And
In
then,
Gen Alpha, I would agree.
yeah, it's like they're just tired of it.
Right.
They're just tired of it because they've heard both sides fight. You know how I gave that example of
The
the
mom and the
parents fight?
dad, yeah.
So now they're watching and they're like, no, I don't like this.
Yeah.
You know, we both grew up we all grew up that way. We
Yeah.
looked at our parents. We're like, I like this, but I don't like this about you guys.
Right.
I'm making my own ideas.
Right.
So I'm seeing this new generation rising up, and this generation I think is going to have the fortitude to take charge of this country.
Right.
Yes.
Just like the kids in North Carolina, right? We saw them hold down that flag, take down the Palestinian flag,
Yeah. Yeah.
and put our flag back up
Yes.
there.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Pride in the nation,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Pride in being an American.
Yeah.
You know, and there's something to that. And when you vote, there is pride,
Right.
and take pride in who you are.
Yes.
You know, don't be ashamed. You know, I know Gen Z had this thing where like, oh, America is so bad. America's this. I've heard it from all over, and I'm just like, and me being a war vet, I'm like, this is my country.
Yeah.
I love my country.
Exactly.
I fought for my country,
Right.
and I don't call
Thank you.
myself Ecuadorian American. I don't call myself Latino American. I call myself American.
Right.
Right.
I've had issues with people that told me, "Oh, so where you're really from?" I'm American.
Yeah.
No, where are you really from? I am American. But if you want to know my ethnicity, where my parents came
Right.
from, they came from Ecuador. But I am American.
Right.
I was born, raised, and my culture is here.
Right.
Right? And that's something that we need to understand. They try to divide us by putting us in subcategories.
Right.
But in reality, we're all one. And we're all American. So I think that's what we need to get is that pride in who we are. You know, there's always not a pride of arrogance, but a pride of confidence of this is who we are. We are a strong nation. And when people see us, they look at role models. They look at what we aspire to be. And it's not to be arrogant, but it's the truth. When you go to another nation, they're like, oh, look at the American.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they get that view of people on TikTok not wearing clothes,
Yeah,
and they
now
think
they
we're
do.
all promiscuous. I do want to point out, I was talking to my sister who lives in Tennessee. I said, I'm so proud of your governor. He designated July a pray and fast month for the presidency. And this was before, it was at the beginning of July. So
Tennessee governor?
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
And so I kind of adopted it, and I said, this is what I gave up. I was like, what can I give up? And this is really hard for me, but what
He prayed and fasted for the president? I'm sorry for interrupting. For the month of July?
Yeah.
See, it makes me believe it's more
Well, but
providence of God
I
to save
did not give up
President Trump.
food because I mean, food is convenience for me. It's not always like I take care of my Asian daughters who are very food oriented. They are Americans, and but I was like, where would it hit me the most to give up? So I gave up watching reels on YouTube because that's my favorite. Like if I want to zone out, I don't want to read, and I'm a voracious reader. I don't want to write. I don't want to whatever I do. So I gave up looking at reels which is very hard for me because I love watching Charlie
Right.
Kirk. I love watching Bill Maher. All these reels. I love watching Nate, whatever his name is. Anna Gray and I talked about this last episode. So I gave up my reels. So she sends reels to us, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to watch them. I'm not going to watch them. So I gave, that was my fast for a month. And I will tell you this, that during this moment in time with everything that had happened after the debate and with what was going down in Pennsylvania, I wanted to press those reels really badly. And I was like, nope. And, but I do think we need to pray and continue to pray to the Lord God Almighty for the leadership in our country.
Yes, we
that
do.
it is, and that we will become and be the people, no matter what, that He wants us to be in all this. I'm very impressed that there wasn't, my first thought was, oh, no, I don't want there to be violence on the streets. And I think the Trump family, I think everybody has handled this really, really well. I think it should be handled very, very well.
He set the tone,
Yeah, he set the tone. And I think everybody else was saying, well, we shouldn't have inflammatory speech. Us giving our opinions in a very conversational way. We should have conversation. We should be able to do this without having to call names or whatever. Now, Mr. Trump is known for his name calling. His names are actually quite slight compared to some of the stuff I've heard about him. Being compared to Hitler and all that. So I do think we do watch.
Monster.
Yeah, all those kind of things. So what are some ways that you would suggest to tell people to act in the meanwhile before we vote?
Use the golden rule. Treat others the way that you would want to be treated, with respect, with honesty, with value, because everybody, whether their opinion is even close to yours or not, has value as a human being. And we don't need to have violence amongst each other. That's something I'm very proud of Biden coming out and saying, of Trump saying, of most people I've heard, violence is not an outlet. We wouldn't want anybody else to treat us that way. So let's just exercise the golden rule first. If we do nothing else, let's hit that point.
That sounds really good. Walter, what would you say the moral of the story of voting this election is?
It's up to you as a person to decide who you want to lead this nation. And at the end of the day, the only ones we got to blame is ourselves for whoever's in office, because God has given us that authority to elect and position somebody in office. So it's different in how God will place kings, because they will be born out of that lineage, right? And we have this great opportunity where God, as a people, just like the first people wanted a king and God chose Saul for them, we're able to choose the person, but we need to communicate with God, right? If you're a Christian, right? In that way. If not, I will search deep inside and say, what is morally right? And I need to do it, because if I don't do it and I just sit back and watch, I am worse off than the bad person in this situation. So it's almost like seeing somebody being assaulted and you're not jumping in to save that person.
Ooh.
And risking your life.
Wow.
We need to be like Corey, right? The fireman that jumped on his family and saved them. If we're not,
thank you for remembering him. Yes.
Right? He's a hero.
Yes.
And Trump's homage to him in his speech was very fitting. Even having his uniform up on stage, that I wrote down crying when I first watched that, because it's what we should be. We should be willing to die for the things that we care about most, and that's what our military does. And that's
thank you
again. Yeah, but that's a true American spirit for sure.
Yeah, living out the best of what we believe.
You know why people love this? When we were at war, and there was a great depiction by a French soldier. He said, I see these Americans. They're big, they're bulky, they're not super athletic. But one thing I've seen about these Americans is that once they commit, they finish the job and they don't stop. They don't retreat.
Right.
And that's one thing we need to be as Americans is go head first.
Right.
And we've always been the Good Samaritan. Let's not lose that.
Right.
And part of voting is being that Good Samaritan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And persevering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think this has been wonderful. Is there any closing thoughts, words?
A house divided cannot stand. Let's remember that while we hold different opinions, we are still one nation.
Yes.
And we will lose our nation if we continue to let the dissension amongst our people run rampant.
Right. And being inflamed by the people, the talking heads.
Yeah.
You know, let's start thinking for ourselves.
Yeah.
What is
start,
right.
Let's start educating ourselves.
Yes. What about you? Any closing thoughts, Walter?
I just said it. Just be a Good Samaritan.
Yeah.
And that's part of voting.
I like that.
Well, may the Lord bless you all for your honesty and your words. I am so grateful to have you, Walter Murillo.
Thank you.
And Sarah Walters. Thank you for all the reels that I will not be able to watch.
You'll get
this
there.
month.
You'll get there.
I get this. Oh no, but it's a very small sacrifice for something. But I do encourage all our audience, if you're praying people, to pray and to educate yourself. My name is Renee Leonard Kennedy. This is Moral Tea. Anna Grace Smith will be back with Sarah recording a really wonderful thing that I popped off the top of my head, and I said, you two need to talk about this. So we'll leave that as a cliffhanger.
Yes.
But we thank you. Thank you to Dylan Dry being our audience and our editor and our boss person and who keeps us straight in tech. And we thank you so much for all that you do and so many things. Yep. So, all right. Let's have a great day and follow the Lord in the way we should go. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey, I'm Renee Leonard Kennedy.
And I am Anna Grace Smith.
And we make up
Moral Tea Podcast.
Yes, we're so glad that you're listening to us. And we want to encourage you to like and subscribe at
Moral Tea Podcast on YouTube,
at pray.com,
and Instagram at Moral Tea Podcast.
Yes.
We will catch you every Monday.
Bye.
Peace.